Good morning. Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. Let's settle down in the back over there.
All right, kids.
So I'm very excited about today. I won't be introducing our speaker, but it's always special when we have one of our own doing a presentation, and I know it's going to be very good. But just as a quick announcement, I announced at last resident council meeting that Fox Run did finally receive approval from New York State to move forward with our project.
Yay.
So I'm not going to talk much about it because what I'd like to do is next Friday have a special coffee hour. So it's not on the calendar. We're going to put something in your mailbox. We'll put something on the Quilt app. But I'm going to do an open forum where I talk about, answer any questions you may have on the project. I'll give you a little more detail about where we started and how we got here. And it'll give me an opportunity to address that Wall Street Journal article that's kind of been a buzz around the community as well, about a community that's failed downstate. And I can answer any questions. I do know a little bit about it because all the CCRCs in New York State, we really do have a good connection. And through our association, Leading Age, we're in touch with a lot of the information that goes through. And we have a cabinet. It's a cabinet through Leading Age of all the CCRCs have representatives, and I'm now the president of that cabinet. It was my turn, so thank you. So I'll be able to answer any questions you have, and the article's a little one-sided and doesn't paint the best picture of what our model is, but I'll be able to give you some reassurance that we're okay. But we're very excited about the project. Finally got that approval, and I can give you more details next Friday. So if you're around, please come, but of course we'll record it as well, and you'll be able to watch it, play it at 9:30, regular coffee hour time. Any resident announcements? I love it, good, okay, well, that's it, I have nothing else to say. So I'm very happy to introduce our introducer. So Barbara Lance, can you come up?
Good morning. I'm really happy to be able to do this today to introduce Dave Williams, who, as Bill said, lives here. So we never know who's living around the corner and down the hall. And if you live on the second floor or the first floor and you're out, if you're one of the hikers, please go all the way to the end to room 200, and out in the hall very often David has lovely flower arrangements in the Ikebana style. So I'm going to start with a little bit of David's background. He graduated from medical school from Wayne State University. Then he was in family medicine, and he did a lot of interesting jobs all over the place. He gave me 2 sheets, so I'm not going to do it, guys. I'm going to give you the condensed version, because what he's going to show you with the Ikebana is really impressive. I've seen him about 3 to 4 times do demonstrations, and it's really enjoyable. So Ikebana is the Japanese aesthetic and its expression. So you can start to see it up here. David started taking lessons in 2012 from a teacher of the, Ichio School of Ikebana, and has continued to this day. And he received a certificate as an associate master of the school. So we have somebody who's well known in the area. He gives lessons in Ikebana and has participated in many workshops, demonstrations, and exhibits throughout the year. The Ikebana School of the Ichio School of Ikebana summer exhibit is at the Webster Public Library. Is it going on now?
It'll start the end of this month.
Okay, so that will start the end of this month. So if you're in the mood to take a ride, you can go see a whole exhibit, which is always very, very exciting. He participates in the Japanese Cultural Day at the Buffalo History Museum the first weekend in November, and also the spring exhibit. the Buffalo Bonsai Society annual show the first week of June, and the Erie County Fair in August, so he's out there and about. I don't think I told you, but what David does now, why we don't see him as much, is David is the medical director at Attica. So he's more than full-time. And someday he'll retire and we'll see him more often, but not right now. So he's also worked with the head of the school for Ichio in the United States, and when he comes from Japan. So I think I'm going to turn it over to you at this point, and I think you'll really enjoy it and look at the very beautiful things that he is able to create.
All right. This is working. I hope you can hear me. I'd like to maybe start off, if you do have any questions, let me know. It's nice to have one of the things I dislike is when I'm in a group like this and I have questions and you feel as though you can't really ask anything. But just raise your hand and I can repeat the question so everyone can hear it, and I'll hopefully give you a good answer. So today I was asked to talk a little bit about Japanese culture and its aesthetic, which is quite different from the United States. As you see up here, it's hard to discuss, let me see if I can get the pointer here. Oh, I forgot how to do it. Oh, maybe there it is, okay. The Japanese aesthetic, it's hard to discuss that without discussing what's called wabi-sabi. It's a term that's very commonly used when you talk about the aesthetic, the Japanese way of appreciating art. It's typically, as you see here, different from Western concept of beauty. We tend to like the big and bold and glorious and very large Hollywood type of production. But in the Japanese, they tend to be more reserved, and it'll show in their way of appreciating life. Now, we like it very pronounced, very showy, brilliant, and dazzling. Now, wabi-sabi is a term that has like two parts to it. Wabi means a rustic simplicity, of quietness. How much of this came from their culture, or Zen Buddhism is very common in Japan. I don't know how much they influenced each other, but Zen Buddhism in Japan is different from China or North Korea, or South Korea. So this certainly comes through a lot of Zen Buddhism and the culture. Wabi-sabi is the beauty which comes from the passage of time. So you can see the United States will just like want to push away the effects of time, cosmetic surgery and looking young, trying to act young. But in the Japanese culture, there's a appreciation that comes from imperfection, transient, in the passage of time. So this is an example of wabi. Sometimes it's better, wabi-sabi can be explained in terms of 1 + 1 = 2. So I always thought it's nice to kind of just show it as something to experience. As you see here, this is very simple. You do have some color there. There's a simplicity and rustic nature to it. You see this wooden table. There's no big Asiatic flowers coming out of it. And you can just see the simplicity and beauty of the lines. Here's another one. Now, again, nothing very dazzling. You have a white vase right down there. And the lines here, the pattern, the texture. The Japanese aesthetic, in my Zen training, and in my training with Ikebana, you learn to see the beauty where we never looked for it before. If you go for a walk with your dog or something, you're just walking around the grounds, you might see something if you just open your eyes and I never realized this was so beautiful. The little flowers on the ground or something, or a branch the way it curves. So this is another example, and you'll see it as I do a demonstration with the Ikebana arrangement, how you can actually do this yourself. There's some big, glorious Ikebana arrangements. My teacher, the head of our school, sometimes would be invited to do some, like one time we were at Washington, D.C., the big convention. And we had to put arrangements around the convention facility. And some of them would stretch from the piano over to me. It'd be that big. They can be like that. But a lot of them would just be like in a little corner. So you can see a simplicity in some of these larger arrangements too. And here's Sabi, again, the passage of time. You can just see the beauty of the different colors and different tones. Normally people wouldn't even think that much about this. But seeing the different little highlights there, like little gems. We just open up and not have any expectations of what beauty is, just let it come to us. You can see some things like this. And particularly as we get older, the passage of time might be a little more difficult because it always emphasizes the youth. But we can see some beauty in, I don't know, maybe you see some pictures of some, I don't know, southwestern Indian, just the lines on the face and the sense of strength there. If we just look, we see a lot of the beauty. Here's another one, a passage of time. You see the lovely curves down here. A lot of movement, even though there's not any movement in the roots, you can get a sense of movement with these lines. Here's when you combine them both, the passage of time. Here now you easily walk by something like this and not think much of it. But if you actually just don't let go of all judgments, and you can see a lot of the texture there, how they're interacting, the strength of the metal, the glossiness, as opposed to the white, cold concrete. There's something sneaking out around there. So we can see beauty a lot if we just open up and let go of our preconceived ideas. And this is another thing, imperfections. You'll see here, this is emphasized. This ceramic bowl was cracked, but they filled it in. You see it up there too. I also, part of my experiences with the tea ceremony, there's a teacher here in the Buffalo area, and I'll go periodically. She'll invite me to a tea gathering, and some of the most favored bowls are the ones that are the most inconspicuous. And they can go for thousands of dollars just because of their natural beauty. As you see here, you have this natural wood. And you see a lot of movement there. You know, it's a little circle there kind of breaks up the movement like a little island. So that's kind of the feel about what Wabi Sabi is. Here's another one. You see the movement of the table, this flow, and then this is kind of solid mirroring the colors up here. Again, you have some movement. This is kind of like reaching down. This is opening up to greet it. You see the different shades there. Now, normally, if you see that in the corner of, I don't know, some building, you may just walk by it. But if you actually just stop and let it show its beauty to you. That's one of the things we do in Ikebana when we make arrangements. It's not about trying to create something. One teacher said, our role is to help reveal the true nature of the plant material, which is perfect just as it is. So when I go to pick up flowers, like I did here with this arrangement here, this is from some of the wooded areas. You know, you see the grasses and you see the Queen Anne's lace and a little branch. You just go for a walk, and if something catches your eye, I let the materials tell me what it wants. I don't try to grab something and create something, but I will walk by there, and if it calls out to me and says, I'd like to be an arrangement, that's kind of where we go with that. We learn to listen to the materials when we make arrangements. Now, Ikebana is the Japanese art of flower arranging, and it started in Japan in the 6th century. It started when the Zen Buddhist monks were offering flowers to the on the altar to the Buddha figure. And it's different from Western arrangements, which tend to be a globe, and you can look at it from all angles, and it's all filled. There's no gaps. It's like a big ball. Now, what they did, they weren't trying to make something new. All the activities in a Zen Buddhist monastery is toward letting go of our typical conditioning and trying to express the natural perfection and ease and calm that we can find if we let go of all these thoughts and conditioning thinking. So that's what meditation is about, letting go of all that and letting all this sense of joy and happiness arise just from right where you are. So that's how they were creating these arrangements. They were trying to express that, not something beautiful, but it's a way, whether they were sweeping or whether arranging flowers, it's all about letting go of our conditioned thoughts and just letting the natural peace and calm and joy from the present moment express itself. It was initially practiced in Zen monasteries, but then eventually it became to appear in the homes of the wealthy because they could afford it and because it was very beautiful. It had in the rooms, the young women were trained in Ikebana because that was part of their culture. But eventually it came to the common class, everyone saw its beauty, and nowadays it's in department stores, public exhibitions, conventions. The one convention that our teacher from our school came over for was had a lot of different things. It had video games, it was Comic-Con or something like that. It was just really big. It had all the convention halls filled up, and we had people walking around all sorts of costumes, but then you had something like Ikebana in a corner or in front of an exhibition hall to catch your attention. Whoops. There we go. It was also incorporated in the tea ceremony with the simplified form of Ikebana known as Jabana. Jabana meaning flowers, Chado is a tea ceremony. And that's even more simplified. You might have just one little branch and one little flower. And that's it. Very simplified. Typically in the tea ceremony you would go in there and for the host would initially look at the little space where there's a scroll in our flower arrangement, and the host would specifically design that scroll for you. It's presented for your enjoyment with the flowers which are connecting, kind of setting the tone. The person does that, and then they just sit quietly, the tea master comes out, and then very quietly, mindfully will prepare the tea. So it became kind of stylized, keep on pushing my button. Stylized to form the Jabana flowers. Now there are about 30,000 to 40,000 schools of Ikebana in Japan. And Ikebana International has chapters all across the world. It started in 1956, year I was born. I guess there's something good about that year. And they have like chapters all over. There's only 2 in the state of New York City and Rochester, and that's where my teachers are. They go there on a regular basis to learn more and more about it. It's lifelong practice. So that's enough of that, and I thought what I'd do is start with the arrangements. So any questions before we do that? Yes?
When you say 6th century, you mean AD?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that when Buddhism came to Japan?
Oh, the Buddhism came there a bit before. They slowly spread. I mean, there are different types of monasteries. Taoism was in Japan, and it kind of, the Buddhist spirituality started to form, and it was initially kind of through Taoism, and then kind of combined, they influence each other, and now they have separate Buddhist spirituality, which is recognized. It's not like part of a Taoist community or like that.
Did it spread to Japan after China?
Well, it started in Nepal. That's where the historical Buddha was. Then went to China, and then it spread into Japan and Korea. And then the lineage I do, the monastery I go to and my Zen teacher is a Japanese lineage. There's a Japanese master who came over to Los Angeles, Zen Center, and then Daido Roshi, who started the monastery. He was raised in Brooklyn, of all places, went to Los Angeles to get his training, and then came back to start the monastery, which is now about 30 minutes east of the Catskill Mountains from Kingston. All right. So, give this back to you, I guess. All right. So this is an example here of the sort of the simple style. Again, a very unassuming vase, and all these materials. We a lot of times will just use routine materials. Now, I have my one teacher. She, Yo Newman, she particularly likes the fall time because she will use those leaves of the hosta after they turn brown and crinkly and yellow, because it has so much texture and so much yellow, which is quite different. You'll never see something like that in official, Western type of arrangements. And we like to emphasize space, so a butterfly can go around. And we a lot of times we'll practice what we call oryoki, which is just the right amount. You don't want to overfill it, you don't want to underfill it. You want to have just the right number of materials so it kind of gets in harmony with the arrangement, the container. The container is just as much a part of the arrangement as anything else. And in some arrangements, we will have a low basin called a suigan. It's about maybe this size with a small edge to it. And we'll fill it, make the arrangement to one corner so you can see the water. If we do an arrangement in glass vase, what's underneath in the vase is just as much a part of arrangement as the top. So you won't see a bunch of stems, unless the stem is part of the arrangement, like there's some lilies, calla lilies. If you split the stems, they have a nice curve to them. So you can incorporate that into the arrangement. So when you look in the glass, you see these curved stems and how they interact. And so that's another part of the arrangement. So the top has to be in harmony with the bottom. So there's things like that. So in this compote, I'm going to make an arrangement. Now in our beginning arrangements, we usually start with just 3 stems and 3 flowers. And it's interesting when we make these arrangements and do an exhibition, a lot of people gravitate to that because they're so familiar with the big full arrangements. It's nice to see something kind of light and airy. And so suivan would be like this. You have 3 stems, and you have maybe 3 flowers, and that's it. And a lot of these arrangements are not the globe type, so a lot of them are viewed just from the front. That's what I'm going to be making here. This one is going to be called contrast arrangement, so that's another easy one to learn. You just have a couple of materials and kind of contrast one another, and you put a few rough flowers in it, and that's it. So I'm going to make this. I'm going to be seeing the back of the arrangement. You're going to be viewing the front. And I got these materials just from the garden that I have. And this is going to be the first main stem. And you want to have it kind of, you want it too tall, you want it too short. And in the beginning in our lessons, we're told how long the main stem is supposed to be. But after a while, you get so used to it, you kind of get away from that. In our school, it's very mathematical. In the beginning, put the stem here, the first stem here, the second stem here, leaning this way, the third stem over here, leaning this way, and the first flower goes here, leaning this way. And when you get further along, like in my lessons, this was hard for me because I'm a math and science person. They would say, okay, make an arrangement with straight line and soft mass. What? It's like, I like to be told where to put things. So here I'm thinking this is going to be probably about the height I want. So we're going to make a cut here.
David, is there anything in the vase now?
Oh, yes. There's a good question. I'll show you. What a lot of people call a frog, we call a kenzen, which is basically a weighted needle holder. Sometimes in vases you don't use those. You have to put some supportive structure in the vase itself. So on this one, as you can see, it has sort of a flow to it this way. So that's what you want to engage the viewer. This would be alongside the do. You want to show the plant wants to engage you. So we'll put this here. That's going to be the first stem, the first main stem. And then usually the second main stem is it's not going to be the same type. It's going to be a little bit smaller, about 2/3 to 3/4. So these little things that I'm saying are ways that you can, maybe if you pick a few things from your garden along the pathway or something, you can incorporate those and make your own little shelf, front door shelf. I want that a little bit shorter. I hope I don't get in trouble. Everyone's going to be trimming out the, you're going to see some bare bushes and bare trees out there. Don't want that. A lot of times, just a little bit shorter. You can always cut, but you can't add. So that's why So this one also is kind of looking this way. As you can see, it's going that way. So we want this to lean a little bit more. All our arrangements, if you look at them the side, don't look too nice because if you look at the arrangements, they're all leaning forward, and so there's like someone's not paying attention to you. But these, and the nice one, also we like to have a conversation with the plants. So like this one's leaning forward, and this one's leaning up to it and forward, kind of like, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So we like to have interaction between the two.
Dr. Williams? You may have said it, I apologize, but what is that plant that you're using for the stem?
This is called an amber 9-bark.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the, in that little garden plot I have there, I planted several things to see what really works. And this one has a beautiful turn to the color, and it's pretty vigorous growing, so I can always expect to have some relatively straight stems from it. So that's one of the ones I've kept. Now this is sort of the beginning of the contrast. And now this is Baptisia. Has a little more flimmy, floppy type of a nature to it. And one of the things I like to do is look at all the materials first. You learn to be quite intimate with the materials. You just look at them and appreciate their beauty and see what they want to offer. This one has sort of like a nice curve to it. So if it comes down there, it'll be kind of engaging. And then you just kind of look at them, and you learn not to be too quick about putting materials in there. You're all about appreciating the beauty. This one has a nice curve, but it's kind of in the other direction. And you just take your time and look at them and see what they're saying to you. Maybe they're not saying much, maybe they're saying, oh. Are you saying? And then sometimes you just trim them up a little bit. Like, I don't think this branch is going to be necessarily what I want. So, all right. So I've gotten kind of a sense, and I kind of like this one. Now the thing about this is it has kind of a nice flow, but sometimes the lines, if it goes this way, you don't want to. If a branch comes this way, you want to trim it. You want to keep things kind of uniform. What's that?
Improve nature.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're in a conversation and someone has their back to you, you want to turn around so you can engage them, So it just makes it a little bit easier to show their beauty. And now what you might see here is sort of the formation of what we call a scaling triangle. Here's the long side, here's the short side, and then coming down here is the medium side. It's not as long as this one, but it's kind of, but not as short as this one. That's a very common theme in Ikebana. It's not always everything, but it is very common. Put this down here. Bend it just a little bit more. Now see, these things are, again, coming forward. If you were to look at it this way, it's not, So in our school, now there's some schools, the Noble School, where everything's pretty much formal, upright, very formal. Ours tends to be a little more freestyle, a little bit more engaging. Yes, sir?
I notice you're working all with dead plants. How, if any way, do you combine with bonsai?
Well, bonsai and Ikebana have a similar aesthetic. Some of the techniques that they use, we use. Like they like to show branches. So a tree, you like to show the curves and movement within the bonsai itself. There's a lot of us taking bonsai.
But they're living.
What's that?
They're living.
Yeah, these were clipped, so they're still living live now. They're not dead. We will use some dead material. There's Scotch broom, which can have a lot of branches moving one way. You can bend them and dry them. There's some vines that they will bleach, so you can work that in sometimes. Dead wood, we will use some arrangements. We have to learn how to use driftwood. So there are some things that are not alive. Right now, these are alive. How much longer? I don't know. Depends. Some of the materials will not last very long. Chrysanthemums will last, carnations last a long time, but things like irises, Siberian irises, their blossom is done in a day or two. So some things don't have that long. So if you're doing an exhibition, You definitely want to know your material. You don't want to put something up there and find that it's dead, and the second day, and everyone's looking at your arrangement and wondering why you're using dead material. But like I said before, my one teacher likes using the leaves, the hosta leaves, where they're in the process of dying. It's in the fall time, they're yellow and brown because they have so much texture and everything. So we do use that sometimes. There's some schools like the Sugetsu School, which tends to incorporate a lot of non-natural materials. Our school tends to focus in on natural materials. We do have some, in New Year's Eve, it's very common in Japan to have this thread called mizubiki, and they'll kind of wrap it around things. It'll be silver, a thread with silver sort of wrapping around it. And it makes it kind of more lively for, I guess, the new year. So I think this might need to use another branch. So I'm going to put that in here. And we cut these underwater because they tend to be a little bit more lasting when you do it that way. And some of the stems, if they're small or very narrow, like that you see the grass here that has very narrow stem, we can use other stems to put a little glue on. I don't know if you can see it, but chrysanthemums are like that. So if you have problems with materials that you've got in the walkway or something, or you can always maybe chop a stem from something else, and they have a pith center that's very soft. You can kind of put the thin stem in that and use that to stick into the needle holder. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. This is sort of an assistant. If this isn't full enough, you can add other stems that are behind it. And then I'm going to let you decide something. We have 2 flowers here. We have this one, also from the garden, or the yellow, bright yellow, which I thought matched that, but this may be more dramatic. Do we have a vote on which one you want?
Yeah, red.
Red one, okay. So these are the zinnias and that I'm growing, so if anyone's in the garden, they are available for you. I planted them specifically for people to pick and use. So we're just going to use 3 of these flowers because these are so brilliant. You don't need a whole lot of them. You don't want it to overwhelm the arrangement. This is kind of nondescript, and then this is green, of course, but it doesn't have the brightness of this. So the first one, let me look at the flowers and see what they have to tell me. A lot of times they'll have a face so that this would be the front side, this would be, sometimes they're on an angle so they're kind of turned, so you're seeing more of the edge. We don't have everything coming out to be straight on like this. A lot of the globe arrangements, everything is like straight at you. So sometimes they'll have a little bit of you want to pay attention to some of the curves. I like this one as, and we want the most beautiful one coming forward the most. So again, we kind of take the time. So I'm going to use this tone. Okay. This one's going to go up. Take the leaves off since I don't think it matches the arrangement. And we usually want it a little bit shorter than the third main stem. So this one's going to be kind of coming forward between the 2 stems here. And the most beautiful one, I'm going to have, it's usually about 3/4 that one. And I want it kind of looking up. A lot of mistakes the students make is they'll put things straight. So this one is going to be looking up this way. This one's going to be coming in and looking this way. So they're engaging one another. Put it down like that. And we put, this is the bud flower, B flower we call it because it's bud. It tends to be the youngest, maybe not totally open. The A flower is the most beautiful. And then the C flower is sort of like the day-old flower. That's it. 3 stems, 3 flowers. You can do it. I'm going to take a quick look, see if we need some adjustments. There's one thing that sometimes what we'll do is add, this looks like it's a little, what I call a little flap. So I'm going to add what's called an assistant stem in the back. That'll pull your eye to the back, and also with a little bit, not so flat, because this is going to be, sometimes we even have flowers facing toward the back.
Can you hold it up so we can see?
Or turn it towards the camera so we can see the front view of it. Yeah.
Very simple, it's not globe, you have the space. That's it, 3 flowers, 3 stems basically. So you can do it.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
And that's the, let me get my head out of the way.
Looks good. It is beautiful.
There you go. Question over there?
Could you comment on the containers that you decide to use? The vases, and does that?
It does make a big difference. There are some containers, usually they tend to be, the more common are black, white, gray, dark blue, so they aren't very brilliant. I've seen some arrangements in very bright red arrangements, but then you have bright red material coming out of it. It's hard to use something very bold and busy. So something that's a lot of bright colors, many colors, it's just usually doesn't work well. So for this type of thing, it was taller, and I knew it was in the audience. I didn't want a low vase type of or container. I wanted something tall. So this provided that. And I also chose it because when you do a display or a demonstration, you like something you can quickly do. Some of the vase work, you don't have the needle holders. You have to make a cross piece, we call it kibari, and put it in the vase, and you have to fit them in. There are sticks that actually pry it in there. That takes a while, and then arranging the flowers, they're just all balanced. This you can put in there and move on, because people get bored watching you put sticks in a vase. So that's the reason why I got this one. I like the tone that it was dark, and you're gonna, it wasn't going to try and take your eye away from the flowers. So that's the reason why I chose that one. I wanted it high, but yet not a base. So, and I think you had a question, and I'll come to you.
Yeah, is the theory of the 3 items being representative of sky, earth, and man,
Well,
is that Buddhist?
Well, it kind of depends. In Iki Noble, when I went to the monastery I go to, I took a class in Ikebana. She is a different school, and this would be considered heaven. This would be earth, the lower branch here, and this would be considered humanity. There can be a practice in Ikebana that tends to be spiritual. A lot of schools like that are not like that now, but they still may use some of the same terminology. I think.
What are you putting the flowers, twigs into to make them stand up?
Well, the weighted needle holder there's like a piece of lead, a flat piece of lead with a bunch of needles sticking out.
Oh.
So you stick it in there. There are different types. Some of them, if you work with grasses, they tend to, if the needles are too far apart, they'll just fall out. So you need to be very close, and they need to be long. We call those grass tendons. This one tends to be an average one. They're a little bit further separate apart, a little more sturdy. Yes.
Is Ikebana unique to Japanese Buddhism?
I think it pretty much started there and spread. I think now you'll find it all over the world, and a lot of times it's practiced not in the context of Zen training, but in the context of what's beautiful. My teacher, Gail Newman, she doesn't follow any particular spiritual practice, but amazingly to me, she makes these arrangements, which I think has a spiritual depth to it. And then there's some people who don't seem to have any practice. I think the head of our school, I if I had to guess, I guess he's not a Zen practitioner, but some of this stuff is just leads me forward. If arrangement's done nicely, what it should do is lift you out of yourself. There was an arrangement my teacher did. I was taking a lesson when I was living in Rochester. It was the evening, and I go into her house at that time, through the kitchen into the dining room where she had an arrangement she had made, a dining room light on it. And I was so taken aback by the beauty of that thing, that I swear, if I had been told I was going to die of pancreatic cancer in 3 months, I would say I'm okay with it after seeing that arrangement. It was so beautiful. It takes you out of yourself. So if you have hard times with life, the way the politics are and everything, it's a nice, and sometimes things get like bad at work. I just want to come home and make an arrangement. So it can have that kind of lifts you out of yourself type of effect. And one of my teachers, Karen Napoli, the head of the EGO's branch here in Rochester, she says that one time the death of a friend really upset her, and she just had to come home and make an arrangement. But you have to be kind of centered on it, because if you, some art will express what you are. There was one time I went to my teacher, Karen in Rochester, and I had a lot of things I had to do, and I was going from one thing to another, and I had to get to my lesson, I hadn't completed it in an hour, I had to get back to Buffalo, blah, 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 blah. And I went there, and then a little later she approved the arrangement, but she said, I can tell there was a lot of anxiety, and you weren't settled just by looking at the arrangement. So you got to be careful what you do, because it can come out.
Wait, this question back there.
Oh, yes.
That isn't gonna last forever. The zinnias are gonna die, and so what do? Rearrange it, or just?
Well, it kind of depends. Some materials will fade. The Baptisia or the false indigo here, that will tend to wilt sooner. We typically, when we do an exhibition, we will prep the materials. We'll get them from a wholesaler where they're dehydrated. So then we'll put them under water and dip them into what we call quick dip, which restores. And I've had the chrysanthemums, for example, the leaves are all kind of wilted. And you clip them under water, dip them into quick dip, and put them in water, and the leaves come up, and the blossoms open back up. So there's another thing that some people would do to restore. But if let's say that this fades first, I could always clip it, or maybe I can make a totally different arrangement. And just use these two items. This has 3 materials. The beginning arrangements have just 2 materials, the stems and the flowers. So I could rearrange it if these are still held up. Or you could make, just let your artistic skills go wild and make all sorts of arrangements, because if you can't get materials, you gotta work with what you can, you do your best and just see what works.
Thank you.
Wait, there was one more.
This is a little off center, but maybe it's a linguistic parallel. When I was a student many years ago in seminary, I made money by binding books in the basement, and my partner was Japanese. So I kept asking him questions, of course, about things. And so I finally, being a young man, I said, "How do you say, 'I love you' in Japanese?" And he smiled and paused, and he said, well, he told me, and I've never forgotten it, is "Watashi wa anata wo aishimasu." And so I tried this out occasionally with some Japanese, and it's probably has an accent, but it's close. And then he smiled again, and he said, "But we would never say that." I said, "Well, why not?" He says, "It's too straightforward, it's too objective, it's too out in the open." And so I said, "Well, what'd you say?" And he said, "Well, the flowers are in bloom, and the sky is beautiful clouds," and so forth. And I thought, okay, it's a cultural difference, I guess you would, I wonder if you think that's kind of fits the cultural difference.
Well, when the teacher comes from Japan, I've learned some things because I would be asked to help, and I would expect someone to tell me what they want. Bring the flowers over here. I want that group of flowers over there. I want this container over there. They don't do that. They just start doing things. And you're expected to learn, like in ours, in the AGO School of Cabana, they were one of the first schools, maybe the first, that actually developed a curriculum and says, put the stem here, put the second stem here on this side, lead it this way, very direct, because that's the way Western are. But in Japan, the bonsai, and they don't say anything, you just follow the teacher around. And our teacher, one of the things that they was, when we do a big conference, the teacher comes from Japan, and we said, okay, we're going to be, shows us, this is an arrangement I want you to make. This three-view arrangement, or this crossing form arrangement. This is how you do it. Then everyone does it, then he starts walking around, commenting on everybody. The teacher, worked with the third headmaster and then one now, the fourth headmaster. And he would come around, he'd look at the arrangement, and, yeah, very nice, okay. And then he would go on, because he wasn't very direct. And my teacher said, don't let him get away with that. If he does there and says very nice, say, well, how can I make it better? Because when you do that, then he will tell you. But otherwise, he wouldn't want to be direct, wouldn't want to be criticized. Well, this doesn't look good. This is crap. You would never say anything like that. He would just, and then his son, who's now the headmaster, he would offer a little bit more because he was trained in some school in, I think, New York City. Came over from Japan, School of Design in New York City or something, and then he went back. So he's more familiar with the American way. But I've heard artists and bonsai artists, masters, that when you go to Japan, don't expect them to tell you anything. You just follow them and you learn by just experiencing it. So that's one of the things that I've noticed about Japanese culture. And when you do a tea ceremony, you can never make a mistake. You can say, that scroll looks horrible. I don't know why you did that. They won't say anything. They'll just, they just take it all in stride. And their sense there is to help you enter into the whole process. And they're not for it at all. But there's a lot of work they go into doing a tea ceremony. Everything is arranged just right. The scroll, the flowers, the tea, the bowl, the utensils, everything. Yeah, everything's subtle.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
All right.
So Dr. Williams, thank you so much. This was, first of all, you're an excellent speaker, and this was fantastic. It's just so unique and culturally different. And I try to tell all the staff at Foxtrot, get to know a community member, because you never know unless they tell you if they have a special talent or what their background is. And it's pretty clear you did not disappoint. You have a special talent, and thank you so much for sharing it.
Sure.
And a little gift for you. I think Janice wants a picture too.
All right. Thank you very much.
This is for you, and then we're gonna. He has the matte finish, I have the shiny finish.
Perfect.